This skills training program is created for individuals who want to learn the three-point shot in basketball. The three-point shot is one of the most deadly weapons in professional basketball. In the NBA, the amount of three-point attempts has increased by 32% when contrasted to 10 years ago. Classifying the skill one-dimensionally is as follows. It is categorized as a gross motor skill rather than a fine motor skill because it involves the usage of large musculature to produce the action. To describe the distinctiveness of this movement, we categorize it as a discrete skill. In other words, there is a clear start and stop point. It is categorized as an open skill rather than a closed skill because of the performer's need to adjust to different situations in an in-game context. Using Gentile's taxonomy to analyze the movement, it would be categorized in the subgroup 4D, which is the hardest skill to perform. The regulatory conditions change. For example, the distance you are from the ring changes at different positions on the court. There is intertrial variability, object manipulation is present, and the body requires transport to get to a shooting spot. We can't get open by standing still. Key points to performing the movement. Keep forearm vertical with the elbow tucked in. Bend the knees, feet square to the basket. Preferred hand doing most of the work in terms of displacing the ball in the direction of the target, while non-preferred hand supports the ball. Follow through with a flexed wrist and also jumping forward towards the basket. In order to keep track of progress, we need measurements of performance. We can do this qualitatively. This entails referring back to the key points of the movement and whether they are abiding by them. The quantitative measures we'll use include a hit and miss tally, but also establishing a point system where the degree of a missed shot is taken into account. This will be discussed in greater detail later in the show. Three-point shot is an advanced skill for a basketball player to have, so the assumption for this learner going into the program is that they are already in the associative stage of other skills such as the mid-range jump shot. In regards to just the three-point shot, they start in the cognitive phase. Within 1 to 2 weeks, it is expected they will move onto the associative stage. The autonomous stage is beyond the scope of this 6-week program because it takes years to master this skill and all its variances. To assess whether learning actually occurred in the individual during the acquisition phase, or it was just due to temporary effects, a retention test will be implemented. The process for this is a pre-test at the beginning of the first week of training, a post-test once it's concluded, and after a week's break to negate any of those temporary effects, the retention test will take place. The transfer test involves introducing the learner to a novel situation, which is a new context to perform their skill. It is a great test to see if the learner can readily use the tools it has learned during training and adapt to the environment in which it is placed. An example for the three-point shot might be a defender closing out to the shot with a flotation noodle, so the shooter needs to increase the arc on the shot and also implement a quicker release. During the demonstration, the coach obviously needs to perform the skill correctly and repeat this whenever necessary. The verbal cues are words or short phrases which bring the learner back into attention with the key aspects of the skill, e.g., use your legs. Augmented feedback is a huge part of learning that is equal parts extremely useful and also dangerous to the progress of learning. Knowledge of performance will be the predominant type of feedback given to the three-point shooter in the early stages of learning, as we are more concerned with the technique. The learner is expected to make gross errors in the cognitive stage anyway, so whether the ball goes in or not is not the focus. Knowledge of results will not be totally ignored with the previously described point system based on accuracy of the shot. For example, 5 points for a made shot, 3 points for a miss that hits the ring, 2 points for a miss that hits the backboard first, and 1 point for an air ball. This takes into account the fact that there will be a lot of misses, but the learner can still be encouraged with a good score by getting closer to the target. The guidance hypothesis states that knowledge of results can lead to the learner becoming too dependent on the feedback, which blocks processing. Therefore, knowledge of results will just be used as encouragement. Monitoring when and how often feedback is given is essential to the learner's progress. Terminal feedback will be employed, which occurs after the trial and means the learner is more available to pay attention. A steady helping of KP and a bit of KR will be given in the early stages of each session, an absolute frequency of around 50%. As the learner becomes more comfortable, a fading schedule will be put into place to decrease their reliance of the feedback and promote implicit learning. There are a number of ways we can manipulate the practice to benefit the learner. Maths practices have longer sessions but fewer frequency, with short rest intervals that are more beneficial when practicing a discrete skill. Because of the length of these match schedules, there will always be at least 1 day break in between sessions. The 3-point shot is high in complexity and a medium level of organisation is required. Both part and whole practice will be employed in this program. Types of part practice involved will be simplification and segmentation. Practice variability means varying the aspects of the skill so the learner can better deal with game-like situations in the future. For example, for the 3-point shot, we'll introduce a defender closing out the shot. Interference will be implemented in the training program. This means drill will not just progress logically, they will be random and result in the learner to better process the information needed to complete the skill. According to the multiple resource theory of attention, our mechanisms for attention are limited. In the early stages of the program, we will make sure the learner is free of distractions. Ways to combat forgetting or interference include the use of imagery prior to training, subjective organisation, and in the later stages of the program, training contexts will aim to simulate more game situations, making the information more meaningful for the learner. Foundations of the 3-point shot will be monitored. Shooter needs good dribble moves for when they are not open so they can drive to the basket. The focus of week 2 is to keep expanding range out to the 3-point line, while still staying specific to game-like scenarios. Dribble moves are graduated from that of week 1, with more intricate moves more likely to fool the defenders. Week 3 involves the learner practicing counter moves when they are not open for 3. These moves aim to give the learner a different and viable option in a game scenario when the defender has closed out well to the initial shot. The various dribble moves practiced so far will help in completing these moves. From week 1, the learner has been practicing basic catch and shoot threes, like such. By weeks 4 to 5, the foundations have been built for solidifying the mid-range, jump shot, and dribble moves, and now the real practice begins. We implement different moves and shots, which all result in threes, using dribble moves or simulated screens. Coming off screens are the best way to get open, and the learner needs to be able to turn the feet, the rest of the body in unison. Week 6, the final week of the program, involves shooting with the defender who is closing out hard, as would occur in a game context. Not every shot is wide open, so the learner needs to be exposed to pressure on the release. A small-sided game of one-on-one, preferably more if numbers allow, is a real game scenario where the learner can start to make those split decisions of when to shoot or when to make a dribble move around the defender. Around the World is another game which challenges 2 players to see who can finish the course first.